Today on Sugar Spun Run, I'll be showing you how to do a simple chocolate ganache drip. Hey Sugar Spun Bakers, Sam here, and today I am going to be sharing a quick and easy tutorial on how to do a chocolate drip on a cake. Now before we begin, of course you are going to need to have some ganache on hand. I do have a super simple recipe for chocolate ganache that I will link to in the description, and you're going to want to prepare that and then let it cool for about 15 minutes before we go any further. Now of course you're also going to need a nice frosted cake like we have here today. You want to have this cake frosted as nice and smooth as possible. I'm not super great at this, so my cake isn't super smooth, but the smoother you can make it, the better your end results will be. Now, while that ganache is cooling, I like to take my cake and pop it in the fridge or the freezer for about 15 minutes so that the frosting gets nice and firm on the outside. It's gonna make things a lot easier that way. Now, before we begin actually putting our ganache on our cake, I recommend that you do a quick test to make sure that it's at the right temperature and it's the proper level, the proper fluidity. That's what I'm looking for. So what I like to do is I'll take something like a paper plate and I will just drip the ganache on the cake and then turn it. And if it drizzles right down the cake or down the plate and falls off, we know that this ganache is a little bit too warm still. If it doesn't budge at all, it's cooled a little bit too much. This is looking perfect, so I can go ahead and begin to do the drip on my cake. Now I'm using this squeeze bottle today. This is, in my opinion, the easiest way to do a ganache drip. I will make sure to put a link in the description so you can buy one of these. They're really inexpensive on Amazon if you don't already have one. But if you don't have one, you can also do the same technique using a Ziploc bag with the corner snipped off. It is a little bit harder to get things quite as precise, so I really recommend one of these, but it can be done that way. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ganache bottle and I'm just going to press the nozzle. It's better if you hold it straight up and down vertically. And I'm just going to drop a little bead of ganache, and I'm just going to keep making that bead larger by squeezing slightly harder until that bead starts to run down the cake. And then we'll stop and we'll take a look and we're going to see where that ganache lands. So we should already know from our paper plate test that the ganache isn't going to run straight down the cake, but it's nice to see in practice that it did not. So now we can go ahead and do our second drop, and I'm just going to form a little connecting line with the ganache over a little bit. You can decide how close or far you want the ganache to be. And then I'm going to squeeze the bottle and do my second drop. We'll let that drip down the cake as well. And then we'll just continue on this way. So I want to point out here that I'm not actually dripping this chocolate straight down the side of the cake. What I'm doing is I'm forming a bead on the top of the cake. I'm not going over the edge. And then I'm just continuing to fill that bead by squeezing the ganache bottle a little bit more until I get enough that it sort of overflows over the side. Of course, I can squeeze more ganache so we have a bead that drips further down the cake, or I can do less so I have a smaller drip. And that one jumped off the cake because I don't have a completely smooth layer on the side, so it hit that lip and kind of jumped off, which is why you really want to have your cake as smooth as possible before you begin. Now sometimes, especially if I have a little icing lip on the cake, I do help the bead along a little bit by nudging it a bit with the tip of the bottle. You may or may not need to do that. Now we're just going to continue to go all the way around the cake. And you can space these drips as much as you want or as little as you want to. And again, you can make the ganache drip more or less depending on how much you squeeze the bottle. All right, so now we have to take care of the top of the cake. So what we're going to do is we'll just take our ganache and we are just going to kind of squeeze this over the surface of the cake. Now you do not have to cover the whole cake. As you can see, I have not covered all of it here. What I'm going to do is once I've covered most of it, is I'm just going to take a small offset spatula and I'm going to smooth this ganache over the cake. Now you want to take special care when you get close to the edge because you don't want to form any more of those chocolate beads and you don't want to mess up your drip. So just be extra careful once you get to the edge. Of course, if you need a little bit more ganache, like if you're starting to see some of the icing from the top poke through, go ahead and add it. And that is really all there is to making a super simple ganache drip on a cake. I really hope this was helpful, and if you try it out, please leave me a comment and let me know what you think. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.